Come listen to the best podcast in the world discuss the worst person in the world. This is not just any book club. I'm Justin.
I'm Pierce.
And this is Off the Books, the book club that occasionally talks about movies a bit too much. You know, the ratio may be a little bit off. And today we're talking about the classic, modern classic, I don't know, but it's on the New York Times Best Films of the 21st Century, The Worst Person in the World by Joachim Trier.
Yeah, Joachim Trier. We're trying our best. We'll probably mispronounce that a couple more times. Right. But the reason we picked this, obviously, it's on the New York Times top 100 of the, at least 21st century so far. It's also one of the few films on there that is also in the Criterion Collection that we haven't discussed before. And we've recently been kind of digging into the Criterion Collection, very prestigious collection, trying to see what all the fuss is about each of these movies.
Yes, and this is one of the few times I've ever went into a film blind. I don't know about you, Piers, if you've heard about this film before. I've never heard about this movie in my life, so I decided to check it out, not even knowing what genre it is. I've just seen this woman in this poster. That's all I knew about the film, so...
I had heard of it. I remember when you asked me if I wanted to watch it for this, I confused it. There was like an Alison Brie movie that came out around the same time that I also haven't seen, but for some reason in my head, just from I guess the posters or some of the promotional material I saw or something, I had mixed them up. So I had to look this up and figure out what it was. But I remember there being some buzz around it at the time. I just didn't end up watching it for one reason or another. I went into it pretty much blind as well. Didn't really know what it was all about.
Yeah. I thought I was anticipating like a dark comedy or something because the title was indicative of that. Didn't expect to be like a romantic comedy, but hey, that's a very nice surprise. In general,
there is romance and it is humorous. Sure, you can call it a rom-com if you like, I guess.
But we're really stretching the definition of it. Okay. I didn't even know if this movie was in Norwegian either, so
no,
that's
me neither.
Bonus.
Yeah.
So,
and that is kind of a bonus, to be honest. I feel like there's not too many famous Norwegian films.
Trying
off
to think
the top
of one.
Of my head.
Yeah, no, I can't think of anything.
I know there's a few Scandinavian ones like Denmark and stuff, but I can't think of any Norwegian ones besides this. So,
yeah, and I think this might be the only Norwegian film to have made it onto the list. I know nothing about Norwegian cinema or Norway in general, so nice surprise, a taste of the culture. And on that note, do you have anything you want to say about it before we go into the summary?
No, I don't think so.
All right.
I mean, everything else I'm going to talk about once we kind of get into what the movie is actually about. So,
all right, full spoilers ahead. Huli, a Norwegian woman in her late 20s, goes from medicine to psychology, then photography in her college years, and then ends up in a relationship with Aksel William, a much older man and comic artist, which quickly turns sour once he brings up starting a family. Huli decides to attend a party and meets Eivind, another man, and they cheat but don't cheat. They kind of are intimate, but they don't do the nasty. Since they're both in relationships, and they end off the next night. They exchange the first names and they agree to never meet again. But little did they know that they would incidentally meet at a bookstore once again and promise to meet each other again at a later date. And that promptly prompts both of them to abruptly end their own relationships and eventually move in together. They have a lot of fun, including a shroom trip, but then Axel's brother meets her at the store and once again reveals that Aksel has terminal cancer, and this greatly upsets her. Huli discovers that she's pregnant and does not tell Eivind, but this could also be Aksel's baby as well. She visits him at the hospital, and Axel has this beautiful speech about life and talks about how much of an impact she has made on her and how great of a mother that she will be. But then a few days later, she receives a voicemail that he has died, and Huli has a miscarriage. And in the epilogue, Huli works as a photographer during a film shoot and briefly sees Eivind with another woman and a baby that is not hers. But Julie, or Huli, seems to be happy, and she returns to editing the photos. So, Pierce, what are your initial thoughts?
I thought that it was actually. I mean, I thought it was a really well made film. Credit to the cinematography and the blocking. I thought it was really nicely shot, um, especially because it's a movie that is fairly heavy in people
Hmm.
talking to each other. Um,
Yeah.
and I also thought that it was pretty relatable. I think this is sort of more focused on maybe millennials, people a little bit older than us, where we missed the boat very. We're not far off, but
Yeah.
not to just tell people exactly how old we are, um, but there is still something to be said about it remaining true for the next generation as well.
Hmm.
Sort of the idea that life and the stages of life don't quite match up to what we expect anymore. Um, and it's not to mention any of the feminist stuff in the film, either
Hmm.
specifically, you know, probably more relatable to women than the pair of us. But I think just for young people in general, there was plenty in there to chew on and relate to. It was
Hmm.
interesting coming into it
Yeah.
with no knowledge about it, about the
Yeah.
movie.
Um, yeah, I also agree that this film is pretty great. It is very 20, like like indie movie vibes about a young woman that's straight out of college and struggling through her relationship troubles. It gives me very much Annie Hall vibes if Annie Hall was directed by someone that is less creepy. Um, she this movie in general, like the way it started off, you're supposed to get kind of angry and pissed at the main character for making some of the most piss poor decisions of all time. It was very, very aggravating, but then you eventually, by the end, you start to love her, all of her, even though that she makes mistakes. She's very indecisive, and sometimes her decisions hurt other people, but that's true of life. And was I found it really profound at the end as well with that little speech that Axel gives, and I thought that I walked away just like thinking that this movie was pretty damn good, and I would recommend it to even probably not my non-movie friends if they were into subtitles, because it just feels very universal as to what this movie addresses. So um, it was a good time. So
Yeah.
uh,
And I think it's very profound, even kind of down to the title, "Worst Person in the World." You were expecting it to be maybe a little bit more comedic. You're expecting her to make mistakes and kind of be rude, I guess, and be sort of bad and maybe learn from it. And she does learn throughout the course of the movie, but she's learning from mistakes that anybody could make. It's not doesn't make her necessarily a bad person, right? She's just a person finding her way through life for the most part.
yeah,
Um,
and stumbling and possibly negatively impacting other people, not through malice or malicious intent, but just through collateral damage, I guess.
mhm.
I like to think that like this movie, in general, this movie's pretty good. I don't think all of it really fits together, but that kind of adds to the charm, I guess, to the indie movie vibes. Um, like, probably my least favorite scene is the scene where she goes on a drug trip, where the effects were really good. It was really well done, I think. It just didn't have any thematic relevance to anything. It just felt like a kind of just out of touch scene in a movie that is pretty generally grounded. I think this was also the scene where she gets tampon blood and puts it on her face to make it like she's a warrior.
Yeah, there was it felt like some of the attempt at feminist messaging, and some of it felt like an attempt at critique as well. It was a little bit cringe-inducing at times. It
Okay.
didn't really feel like, I don't know. It was difficult to parse exactly what he was trying to say about it. There was something about sort of intergenerational differences
Hmm.
between men and women, and then like I think we could boil it down kind of to the if I'm looking for an exact example, the woman splaining comment where it's like it's kind of
Okay.
played
Yeah.
off as a joke, um, but it comes from a real place. And there's several things throughout the movie that are kind of like that, where it seems like it's both a genuine, it's like kind of like a joke, like oh, this is less serious than some of the other stuff feminists are talking about, but also
Hmm.
like some of it does feel like a genuine attempt to critique.
Hmm.
And so it's difficult for me to parse exactly what Trier was trying to say with some of that, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. 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 I'll say, yeah, there were times where the screenwriter or slash director, I don't know. Oh yeah. I know there was another writer on this, where they kind of leaned too much into the monologuing, like that one scene where the comic book artist with Axel, I think, right?
Mhm.
Or yeah, who basically just, well, this was when she was at the gym, when the guy starts getting attacked for his comic book and is like, "You guys are canceling me. Do you not know what art is?" And I'm like, "All right, it's gonna end there," but it goes on for way too long.
Yeah, yeah, and it feels like they're trying to. It's like an intergenerational commentary on it being like intergenerational, and like you know the Me Too movement and stuff. And
Yeah.
there are some things that I think he's probably correct on, even like lowbrow and children stuff and comics is art and
Hmm.
should have freedom of expression, but also critique is a part of art
Hmm.
as well. And so they're critiquing you and your art, and yeah. And I guess that's kind of the point, but
Hmm.
it I don't know. It the way it's gone about, the way it's discussed in the film doesn't sit right with me, I guess,
Hmm.
completely.
I know that you probably had a problem with that comment they made about overpopulation.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody believes that overpopulation, oh god.
Okay.
All right, okay. I'm going to say one thing and then we can move on. Like everybody that I've ever analyzed who talks about overpopulation seriously, they rarely take into consideration technology. The most famous is Thomas Malthus. He doesn't take technology into consideration like at all, and he's kind of the baseline for all of our
Hmm.
overpopulation theories. So, anyways, not the point, but yes, whenever overpopulation comes up in a film or a book, I'm like,
It gets
do
you
we
going.
do we know what we're talking about right now? Not really.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. It's kind of like me when someone like disses Superman is boring. Not anymore though, because the population loves Superman now.
Yeah.
So, completely different topics. Yeah. Um in general though, I think that this film, to really pivot to the other side, this film really does capture the highs and lows of being in a relationship where I think it does capture the highs, the intrigue, the impulsiveness of getting into a relationship where it's kind of forbidden. Where Julie, I feel like I should just call her Julie because it's with a J, and I feel like we're gonna,
Easier for
yeah.
us Americans.
Yeah, and I think I've really overpronounced the H in my summary, so
Yeah, yeah.
someone's gonna take a yeah, Julie, even though yeah, she makes really piss poor decisions, you can kind of side with her on some of her decisions. Not the cheating part, but like the fact that like she gets into a relationship where she was told not to be in it. Where the first guy, Axel, who is 15 years older, and they just do not seem compatible. You can tell that, like, I wouldn't even say it's out of lust, but like she generally does feel a sense of attachment towards him. And they do make it work for at least a little bit. And it's a fine relationship. She seems to get along with her family, even though they're slightly dysfunctional, but like they get along pretty well. It's just when the question of her having a child gets brought up, it all comes crashing down. Should she have cheated on that on her boyfriend? Probably not, but you can kind of see where her indecisiveness could have come through, and she decided to cheat, but not really cheat with another man that she just met. Which I think that was an interesting choice, where you're not going to side with your protagonist. You may not even agree with her. You might even hate her for the first third of the film, but it is true to the character, and it is the point of the movie, where the title comes from. And
Yeah.
also, shout out to the actress. I think she really is great. Um, she is very expressive, and apparently the actress Reinsve RR. Um,
Uh-huh.
she didn't have much acting experience. She was thinking about even retiring and becoming a carpenter or something because she only had one scene in a this director's previous film, Oslo, August 31st, which was about a decade ago in 2011. But the director decided to impromptu just interview her for a role in this movie, and now she has a leading role. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Just to add real quick, yeah, you did over pronounce the
Okay.
H. The Germanic J is more like a yeah sound, like Yuli.
Yuli, that's how it's pronounced in the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You're thinking of the like Spanish J is more of a
Mm,
H. Anyways, yeah, and I think honestly, one of our friends just recently, I know we've already talked about it, but one of our friends just recently read The Bell Jar, and so we talked about it with them, and it kind of
the
came back
Belhar.
into my yeah, kind of came back into my mind recently with I think the best single part of that book, I think by far, is kind of the how it looks at the idea of potential, and the what is it, the
The
fig
fig tree.
metaphor? Yeah, the fig
Yeah.
tree. Um, I think that is done amazingly here as well in a more modern context. I think like with sort of the way the internet is in modern times, I think it's very easy to get into something like the very beginning, right? You watch videos, you read articles, you look up stuff, you find, deals online for equipment if it's something like photography, which she gets into in the
Hmm.
movie. Um, and so it's very easy if you're someone who has a lot of potential at the beginning of your life to be indecisive and jump from thing to thing. Um, and it's a trap that she sort of falls into. And I don't think they get as much into the what I was talking about with it being sort of an effect that the internet has on us. But I think that is a new thing in modern life, that there's just so much going on all the time. It adds to kind of the paradox of potential, the amount of indecisiveness that you can have as you're just kind of starting out and figuring out what your future looks like.
That is very true. And yeah, we kind of side with her for her indecisiveness as well. Because like what it probably the most famous scene in the film was that light switch scene where everybody freezes, and I was
Hmm.
like, "Is this cinema? They're actually committing to it." Um, and she daydreams about it, and then she agrees to. It's actually just a really nice scene in general. It seems like a Coke commercial with the way it's lit and everything, and overly happy, but that is the point. It's overly idealized, and yeah, at this moment she's not paralyzed by indecisiveness. She's just going through impulsivity, and I think what another benefit to the film is that it doesn't really ask you. She doesn't make a wrong choice, more of an immoral choice, because the two men, Axel and Eivind, they aren't bad people. And it's I'm trying to think. Axel, he comes across as immature, but then he does show more depth as the film progresses, especially at the end when he's at the end of his life. Um, and they are never portrayed as bad people. They are just portrayed as simply incompatible, who also go on their own journey as being indecisive as she is, because Eivind abruptly breaks up with his girlfriend, even though there were some problems that we did not see. But it is also kind of addressed how overbearing she is. So they're kind of like parallels, maybe even foils to each other in terms of that, which I thought was just pretty neat. The film doesn't condemn anybody, and it doesn't
Yeah.
really ask you to side with anybody either. So, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to know a fun fact, though, the actor who plays Aksel, Anders Danielsen Lie, he's a doctor in real life, and he was an important aspect of Norway's COVID-19 response. And he worked as a medical supervisor for the COVID-19 vaccination center and contact trace team in the Nordre Aker borough of Oslo.
Wow.
Fun fact.
Towards the end of that, it seemed like you were just like reading from a page.
Maybe.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I think I I think this movie kind of serves a pretty significant purpose for younger people to sort of feel seen, and also older people to, I think, see kind of what
Hmm.
has changed for younger people in terms of dating, in terms of the prospects of life, um, in terms of sort of what I think a lot of young people are finding important. You can see that with her jumping from thing to thing, right? Like she sort of jumps from, I would say she jumps from the like scientific typical like, oh, this is what you should do, this is the type of job
Hmm.
you should get to make money or be successful or whatever, and she slowly shifts towards kind of the artistic, towards something that a lot of people find a lot of meaning in, but
Passion. Yeah.
and passion, but a lot of people are afraid to pursue because it's very hard to be successful.
Hmm.
And I think it's sort of, if you look at polls and surveys and things, um, generationally, younger people are more and more apt to say probably the most important thing about work is feeling like they're making some kind of a difference, that they're
Hmm.
meaningfully contributing in some way. Um, and even though it's hard to be successful in the arts, in writing, in photography, that's still what she ends up pursuing because
Hmm.
it's, or at least as far as we see her.
Yeah.
Maybe she's indecisive later too, but it doesn't. It seems like she's kind of found her footing by the epilogue a
Hmm.
little bit. Um, uh, she sort of pursues that, something that is more meaningful,
Hmm.
something that, even if it's hard to make it, it's obvious what kind of social contribution you're making.
Hmm. And something I will also add, in the last chapter of the movie, before, like when she's talking to Axel, something that I noted, when she was at the hospital, she kind of combines her three goals in life. I don't know if this is intentional or not, but she becomes a photographer because she's taking pictures of Axel while he's at his apartment, for learning as he remembers where he was. She kind of becomes a psychologist because she's like not confronting him, but more about asking him to speak and reflect on life as he's near the end. And in a way, since considering the circumstances, she's at a hospital, she could also be considered a doctor, where she is comforting him in that
Hmm.
way, in palliative care, I guess. And that ending really, with Axel, it forces her to confront all her flaws, and this is what the film kind of coalesces and ties it all together, and I think almost a neat bow. And it forces her to confront a serious, more solemn side of herself, where, again, Axel speaking about what the meaning of life is.
Yeah, and I, now that you mention that, I think that follows through. It's true, and it follows through into the epilogue, even where she's sort of trying to get an emotional response out of the actor for her photography. She's
Hmm.
kind of combining a lot of the experiences she's had and all of the things that she's learned along the way into kind of what she ends up doing, both with Aksel right at the end of the film and then into her work in the epilogue.
Yeah, and I guess this film also has a counterpoint to that because I do remember at the end with Axel, he also mentions that that he spent his life in just meaningless pursuit, collecting all that stuff, comics, books, and I just continued even when it stopped giving me the powerful emotions I felt in my early 20s. I continued anyways, and now it's all I have left: knowledge and memories of stupid, futile things nobody cares about. Which that is a blow. That hit me somewhere. Um, Damn.
Yeah, and again, kind of follows through. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more in depth about the epilogue in a second. Maybe we won't,
Mhm.
but follows through to that as well as she's looking out the window at her other ex boyfriend who looks to be starting a family.
Mhm.
Right at the very end, she's looking at them out the window of the movie set.
Yeah. Um, yeah.
She it's like it feels somber to me. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's what you got exactly, that look out the window. But then at her computer is a little more mixed. I don't know. Right after that, but whatever.
Hmm. Yeah. I wish I had anything meaningful to say about that. I mean, you do bring up a good point, a point that I wish I could extrapolate on, but
I I
I got
I
nothing to say.
when the movie ended, I felt like the epilogue was somewhat challenging given
Mhm.
everything that had come before. That it was hard to at least put into words exactly how I felt
Mhm.
about the epilogue and you know what was happening between the lines in Julie's mind and all that.
Mhm. Um, yeah, but I think the music kind of indicates that's a little bit upbeat, where
Hmm.
she is
Yeah,
working
yeah.
on. So,
Yes, I think that probably the meaning is that you know the fumbles that Julie has are obviously relatable, right? They're mistakes that we all make as we try and go through life, and in the end, we're all sort of trying to find some kind of meaning. And she seems to be finding meaning in her work, and I don't know. Again, I can't place exactly how she feels about family
mhm.
because it feels like on the one hand, Axel kind of convinces her that she could be a mom, but doesn't really seem like what she wants either. Like she's kind
Mhm.
of accepts it, but it's not her preference. Maybe
Mhm.
she has definitely some complex feelings about it still, even after that conversation with Axel. Um, but uh, but it definitely seems like she's finding meaning in her work, and I think that's where the sort of upbeat comes from. That it's she's finally sort of decided what she's going to do as far as working, and she finds meaning in that in her photography and the art that she's creating
Mhm.
through that.
Yeah, I also agree on that too. I Do you have any final thoughts on the film, or do you have anything else to add? Because I think those are the end of my notes on the film in general.
Um, I Yeah, I think the only thing I would have dug into more than what you had in your notes is the epilogue, which I kind of did.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's con- she feels content, but there's also kind of a somber note or a melancholic note. Your
Hmm.
mistakes aren't erased because you found meaning, but also you're not the worst person in the world because you've made mistakes, right?
Mm. Hmm.
Like it's I think it's easy to kind of feel the epilogue, but it's much harder to kind of put it into words, I think.
Yes, as we're struggling to do it right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll say my one kind of criticism of the film, which it's kind of baked into the plot, like you can't really remove it. It's that it kind of fails the Bechdel test. Like she's defined by the men in her life. That's kind of one thought that had to me, just like kind of after watching him. Like, damn, it was good, but like, damn, she's defined by the men. Not a
Yeah,
meaningful criticism, but like, I guess if you had
and
to critique
it
another aspect.
yeah, it would also. I think it's a criticism that you could easily levy. I think it's also a criticism you could kind of turn on its head and be like, well, that's the point.
It is the
I
point,
don't know
yeah.
if it's an argument that I would make necessarily,
Hmm.
but I could understand someone making that argument
Yeah.
about the movie.
Okay. And on that note, we're introducing a new segment I like to call Letterboxed Star Reviews.
Okay.
I called it Letterboxd. I
the
didn't have the
the
name planned.
the
Yeah.
name is workshop. It's getting workshop for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. You want me to go first? Do you want to
Yeah.
go
So
first?
how is this working exactly, Justin?
Okay. So we're gonna. I have three reviews, and I am going to first read them off. And these are reviews that I found a little bit provocative. Maybe they might be good. They might be bad reviews. Reviews that I picked up because they're quality or not. But the name of the game is I will read a review, and I want you to name how many stars it has received. You think this person has given. Okay. First review. Hitler must have laughed in hell when they told him that an aimless Norwegian woman with commitment issues took his title.
That sounds like a solid review, a joke that somebody liked the movie would have made, like a maybe not a 5-star review, but like 4 or something.
Oh, you're four and a half.
4.5. Okay.
Good job.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. You want me to do another review?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Okay. Um, Men still can't write slash don't understand women with avoidant attachment styles. Nothing new. You gotta think.
Sounds like somebody who related to the movie to
Yeah.
some extent. Is this also a really high review, like 5 stars ish?
Oh, 2.5.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess relatability does not necessarily make an enjoyable movie.
Yeah. Okay. Last review. Has the aesthetics of a good movie without the soul of one. Recommended for people who like acoustic indie covers of Nirvana.
This person sounds like a certified hater. Like 2 stars.
1 star. Yeah. Like
One
one.
star.
Yeah. 1 star.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Um, I I have one. I don't want to do too many. We should probably figure out how many reviews feels right
Okay.
once get the hang of it once we start doing this segment. But
Okay.
I have one. Yes, that is more or less what my 20s felt like. I would also give my 20s blank stars.
I'm gonna go full swing. 5 stars.
3 stars. 3 stars.
Okay.
Your high estimation of this person's 20s. That's crazy.
Okay. Well, damn. I just got wrecked there. Okay.
Well, do you have any more? Or do you want to
No,
call it
those are all
there?
the yeah, those were all the three reviews I had on me. So,
Okay.
uh,
Um,
uh, take it away.
well, if you enjoyed this episode, you can follow us, give us a like, rating, subscribe, whatever it is on whatever platform. Hopefully, more YouTube content coming soon. I've some things that I'd like to tool around with. Justin, I know, has some things he'd like to tool around with. I
For
know
a
we've been
year and a
saying it
half.
for a year, but that's all right. It's okay. And yeah, with that,
Goodbye, Prometheus.
okay.